All right, now to give us more perspective in terms of what is unfolding at this moment in Syria, we are being joined by Mr. Ömer Kizilcik, who is a non-resident fellow for the Syria project in the Atlantic Council's Middle East program, and he's joining us in this broadcast. Now, Ömer, tell us what is happening at this moment in Syria. What has sparked off this sudden uprising that has taken place by this particular group that goes by the name Hayat Tahrir al-Sham? Is it backed by Turkey?
First of all, this offensive was not only launched by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, but by all of the Syrian rebels. So it's a vast coalition of all rebel forces opposing the Assad regime, ranging from the more democratic leaning to Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. And when the Syrian rebels initially planned for this offensive 6 weeks ago, Turkey opposed this. But only after the Turkish negotiations with the Assad regime to normalize the relations and to put forward a peace process in Syria failed. And the Assad regime proved unwilling to discuss any path forward for peace. Turkey apparently gave the green light. So Turkey is not directly involved, but one can clearly assess that Turkey has given the green light for the Syrian rebels to advance, as many Turkish-backed Syrian rebels are on the forefront of this offensive. Secondly, initially the expectation was much more limited. As the name of the operation suggests, this was more of a warning message initially. However, the Assad regime's defensive lines collapsed so fast and so quick that it turned out to a total mess for the Assad regime. The Syrian opposition, the Syrian rebels, were able to advance far beyond their expectations, and they advance as fast as they can drive. There is almost no resistance from the Assad regime anymore after an initial fight of 3 days. Once the Syrian rebels entered Aleppo city, we have seen that the Assad regime and Iran-backed Shia militias and the Russian Air Force were unable to change the balance of power in Syria anymore. And now the Syrian rebels almost reached one of the biggest towns in Syria as well, another one, Hama city.
Right.
So after Aleppo, they are going also now for Hama. So this is something unbelievable, and no one would have expected this to happen. And we see here that we have here three main lessons to take why no one expects this, including the Syrian opposition. The Russians, due to the invasion of Ukraine, are much more weaker in Syria than anyone anticipated.
Right.
The Iranians are much more weaker in Syria due to the Israeli escalation with Israel than anyone expected. And lastly, the Assad regime is much more weaker than anyone expected due to years of misgovernance and mismanagement at a bad, troubling economy.
You know, you're right in your assessment when you say that the Russians are caught up in Ukraine. The Iranian influence in Syria is on the wane at this moment because of what is happening with Hezbollah. But the obvious question is this: what does Turkey have to gain by green signaling the opposition forces that are now carrying out this offensive? And they're also backed by a few other nations as well, such as the United States of America, which backs the Syrian Democratic Forces, which are another rebel group that's fighting there.
So to make things clear for you, the Syrian Democratic Forces, the YPG-dominated Syrian Democratic Forces, are a Kurdish militant group which is the Syrian branch of the PKK, a designated foreign terrorist organization. However, that being said, the U.S. differentiates between its main branch and the Syrian branch and works with the Syrian branch in Syria. So the U.S.-based YPG was actually trying to withhold against the rebel offensive. They have colluded with the Assad regime, with the Iran-backed Shia militias and Russia. The Russian Air Force have directly aided them in opposing the offensive of the Syrian rebels. However, even their attempts, even them getting involved in trying to protect the Assad regime was not enough to stop the rebels at once. And now the Turkish-backed rebels and other Syrian rebels are advancing despite the cooperation between Iran, Russia, the US-backed YPG, and the Assad regime. So Syria is a complex mess, unfortunately.
No, it is a very complex mess. That is true. But my question is obviously this. But backing these rebellious forces, what does Turkey stand to gain? That was my question.
Yeah, what does Turkey stand to gain? The first and most important thing is it changed the entire calculus in Syria. Turkey has tried for almost 2 years now to normalize with Assad regime and to find a path forward for a political solution. Unfortunately, that did not happen. And I think that Damascus is now quite upset that they have not positively responded to the Turkish offer. Secondly, Turkey has a huge pressure on itself domestically due to the Syrian refugee population. As things stand now, after things will calm down in Syria somehow, and after the city of Aleppo and surroundings, and probably even Hama, as it appears, are being controlled by Syrian rebels, we will see a huge refugee return from Turkey to Syria.
Right.
As most of the Syrian refugees inside Turkey are from Aleppo city, and Aleppo city has the potential, the capability to host people. It has an infrastructure, it has housing, it has an economy ongoing, and it was actually in the pre-war time the economic heartland of Syria.
All right, we'll have to leave there. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Ömer Özil Kizilcik, for joining us and getting us those details there. For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.